In a video posted to TikTok, a veterinarian was captured performing an illegal surgical procedure on a pregnant French bulldog in February of 2021. After the footage was shared online, the vet and the animal's owner were both taken into custody by authorities in Central Florida. An arrest report indicated that the dog's owner, 50-year-old Larry COAN, had taken his pet to an unlicensed veterinarian in Hernando County, identified as Frankie Huertas Rivera. COAN later told investigators that he believed Huertas Rivera to be a legitimate animal doctor, but he also claimed to have sought the man's services in an effort to save money. The owner agreed to pay $650 for Huertas Rivera to carry out an unauthorized C-section on his dog. The surgery, which was performed in the living room of COAN's Claremont residence, was filmed by the homeowner's 15-year-old daughter. The clip, which was promptly removed from TikTok, appeared to show that the animal had not been properly sedated prior to the procedure. Upon realizing that the surgery had gone horribly wrong, COAN brought the dog to a veterinary office in Davenport, but the animal and its 2 unborn puppies were reportedly dead on arrival. Both COAN and Huertas Rivera were charged with aggravated animal cruelty and practicing veterinary medicine without a license. Number 6. Kelly FOLSE. On the afternoon of December the 13th of 2017, Kelly FOLSE fatally shot the American bulldog that lived next door to her while the animal's owner was at work. The shooting marked the culmination of several months in which 35-year-old FOLSE had tried getting her neighbor to stop her pet's incessant barking in the backyard. FOLSE reportedly worked as a veterinarian at Aberdeen Veterinary Hospital in Harahan, Louisiana. According to evidence that emerged from the consequent police investigation, the vet had sent her neighbor a series of text messages and videos about the 15-month-old dog's barking leading up to the incident. The owner was therefore fully aware of FOLSE's issues with the animal. She arrived home on December the 13th and discovered that her dog, named Bruiser, had succumbed to a gunshot wound to the back of the head. The woman immediately suspected that the veterinarian was the one responsible for her beloved pet's death. On December the 19th, the owner's suspicions were proven to have been well placed, as FOLSE was arrested at her home by Jefferson Parish Police. She was charged with aggravated cruelty to animals in connection to Bruiser's death, as well as unrelated drug charges stemming from unprescribed narcotics that had been found in her house. In the aftermath of her arrest, FOLSE was fired from her position at Aberdeen Veterinary Hospital, which, coincidentally, was the same clinic Bruiser had been taken to following the shooting. Number 5. Hunter COAN. An Alabama veterinarian caused a fatal 3-car crash in West Mobile on the evening of September the 11th of 2013. Court records named the crash's instigator as Hunter COAN, a man reported to have been under the influence of prescription sleeping pills and anti-anxiety medication at the time. The authorities found that COAN had initially hit a vehicle driven by a retired federal probation officer, John Lindell. The pileup that ensued also involved Jesse and Judith Kennedy, who'd been driving behind Lindell in the moments leading up to the crash. Although they sustained injuries, the Kennedys ultimately survived the incident. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for Lindell, who was killed instantly. COAN was taken into custody by Alabama state troopers on April the 4th of 2014. He faced charges of murder and 2 counts of third-degree assault as a result of the deadly DUI crash. During the subsequent court proceedings, it emerged that the veterinarian had previously pleaded guilty to DUI on 2 other occasions and had served a 1-year probation sentence in connection to one of those cases. On April the 7th of 2017, COAN was convicted on all counts. The jury assigned to his trial reportedly deliberated for just under 2 hours before making their final decision. He was sentenced to serve 18 years in the Alabama State Penitentiary for Lindell's murder and an additional 2 years as a consequence for the assault charges. Number 4. Valerie McDaniel. On March the 27th of 2017, a Houston veterinarian who'd been charged with attempting to arrange her ex-husband's murder jumped to her death from the 7th floor of her high-rise apartment building. At the time, Valerie McDaniel was still awaiting trial for the alleged murder-for-hire plot she'd orchestrated alongside her boyfriend, Leon Jacob. According to court records, the pair had employed an individual whom they believed to be a hitman to kill their respective former partners. The prospective assassin was reportedly offered $20,000 in cash and jewelry to carry out the double homicide. The man whose services they'd solicited, however, was actually an undercover police officer, later identified only as Javier. McDaniel and Jacob were consequently arrested and criminally charged. The former, who operated her own veterinary clinic near the affluent Houston neighborhood of River Oaks, took her own life the day before she was scheduled to appear in court. Her boyfriend was forced to bear the legal consequences of their murderous scheme by himself. In April of 2018, Jacob was sentenced to serve the remainder of his years behind bars. Number 3. Todd Glover. A Texas veterinarian was accused of using drugs from his clinic to incapacitate and abuse 2 girls reported as being in their late teens at a Louisiana casino in December of 2018. The victims alerted local authorities, and Texas Rangers subsequently raided the animal hospital of Santa Fe. It was there that the alleged perpetrator, Todd Glover, operated his veterinary practice. In documents pertaining to the civil lawsuit that resulted from the case, it was stated that Glover had given the 2 anonymous young women drinks that contained medication commonly used to tranquilize animals. The victims became unconscious after consuming the tainted beverages, and Glover allegedly proceeded to perform non-consensual acts on them. The vet was arrested the following month and, despite denying the allegations, was charged with the assault and battery described in the lawsuit. Glover faced further legal troubles in July of 2019 when he was indicted for allegedly engaging in organized criminal activity. The new charges stemmed from fraudulent prescriptions that the vet had used to secure various medications for his practice. The Texas Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners also noted that Glover had failed to keep proper records of the controlled substances being used in his office, which included ketamine, tramadol, and diazepam. Number 2. Andres Lopez Elores. In June of 2015, a Venezuelan veterinarian named Andres Lopez Elores was taken into custody by law enforcement officers in Spain. His arrest occurred roughly a decade after Colombian authorities had raided his clinic in the city of Medellin, where they reportedly found 10 dogs, 3 of which had been surgically implanted with heroin. As investigators eventually learned, they'd uncovered an illicit smuggling operation in which Elores had allegedly participated from September of 2004 until the raid of his property in January of 2005. In the aftermath, he became a fugitive. The veterinarian had conspired with a Colombian drug trafficking ring to import heroin into the United States with the use of canine drug mules. On behalf of the traffickers employing his veterinary expertise, Elores had stitched bags of liquid heroin inside of the animals, which were housed on a plot of farmland that he'd leased while attending school in Colombia. The dogs were subsequently placed on board commercial flights to the US, where upon their arrival, they underwent a second surgery to remove the packets of drugs from their bodies. Elores had eluded capture for 10 years before he was ultimately tracked down by Spanish police and extradited to New York City, where he stood trial. He faced a single charge of conspiracy to import a controlled substance into the United States, to which he pleaded guilty in September of 2018. According to a Justice Department press release, Elores was sentenced to 72 months in prison in February of 2019. Number 1. Wendi Mae Davidson. A former veterinarian from Texas fatally poisoned her husband with drugs destined for animal euthanasia in January of 2005. Following the murder, the vet, identified as Wendi Mae Davidson, dumped the man's body in a nearby pond. She reportedly stabbed him 41 times after he'd already passed away in order to keep his corpse from floating to the water's surface. Davidson had been married to 24-year-old Michael Severance, a U.S. Air Force enlistee, for roughly 4 months before she killed him. But the specific motives behind her crimes have remained unclear to investigators in the years following the incident. Davidson had given birth to Severance's child only a few weeks before they were officially wed in September of 2004. They had planned a trip to visit Severance's relatives on the East Coast in January of the following year. On the day they were scheduled to arrive, however, Davidson called to notify the family that her husband had gone missing the previous morning. The San Angelo veterinarian would tell detectives that Severance had been drinking heavily prior to his disappearance, mentioning that he'd allegedly left behind his car and cell phone. Local police called on the Texas Rangers to aid in their investigation, which didn't generate any actionable leads in its early stages. When Severance failed to report to his commanding officers on the day he was due back at his military base, the Air Force's Office of Special Investigations stepped in to lend their assistance as well. They examined the couple's home and discovered internet searches made by Davidson concerning polygraph tests and the decomposition of a body in water. Investigators also established that the woman had been regularly visiting a pond on a friend's livestock ranch since her husband had gone missing. Davidson's brother told San Angelo police that she'd confessed to him and their parents that she'd carried out Severance's murder. At that point, detectives had gathered enough evidence to take the woman into custody. The following morning, the victim's body was found in the pond Davidson had been visiting. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison and was denied an early release in May of 2019. Thanks for watching. Would you rather see a veterinarian for your next 5 annual physicals or have to grocery shop exclusively at a convenience store for an entire year? Let us know in the comments section below.